Good evening, friends. At the very outset, I would like to thank the Australian Tibet Council for organizing this Tibet talk. And in fact, more than that, I would like to thank the Council for working for the Tibetan cause relentlessly for so many years. And it is because of this relentless support. You have also today asked me to speak on the relevance of the Tibetan culture in the 21st century. And I think you have already seen the relevance of it because you have been working for so many years. And your support clearly shows that the Tibetan culture is not only something that is relevant to the Tibetan people only, but something that is relevant to the whole world. And it must be so because Tibetan culture is a part of world cultural heritage. But unlike an old crumbling building, which we say this is also world cultural heritage, unlike the external material objects, when we talk about Tibetan culture, it has to do with human emotions, human feelings. Unfortunately, today, people in all parts of the world tend to go for what is outside of us, expecting and thinking that all our problems will be solved by external material accumulations. I cannot help saying the same thing which I say in many places. Today, if you ask somebody, do you have some time? Everybody says, I'm very busy. And they are extremely busy, yes, by running and running in the pursuit of accumulation of material objects. So that makes me ask the question that what do we mean by development? What do we mean by culture as a whole? Unfortunately, today for many people, development means external material construction. If you have many high-rise buildings, in between which there are many shiny roads, then you conclude and say, wow, so developed. I think this is not very healthy. And while focusing so much on the so-called external material developments, the more you focus on those external material developments without thinking and without planning, the more you are forgetting yourself, completely forgetting yourself. Forget about the culture inside. You are even forgetting yourself. A clear indication is that today many people suffer from loneliness, depression, low self-esteem, and whatnot. Despite living at a time, at a period when we claim that we have made so much progress in development. I, for one, will be the last person to try to turn the clock back. I'm not against development as a whole. But when you see the trend of the so-called development, His Holiness has very pertinently said that in terms of external material development, it is wrong for each and every country to think that each and every year there should be GDP growth. It is impossible. And if you do that impossible thing, the end result will be you will finally destroy the whole world, whole environment. Because the so-called external development the source of that external development is external material resources. External material resources by definition have limitation. Therefore, you can make that so-called development only by destroying the environment. And in fact, there's no need for me to talk about how much damage we have already done. The so-called most developed country probably will be the most polluted country. Look at the situation of Beijing in today, and similarly many other countries. We proudly call ourselves intelligent people, people with wisdom, people with knowledge, people with information. We proudly say we are living in the age of information. I am tempted to say that the much of information that you get today is junk information. And at least according to Buddhist teaching and Tibetan culture, we say that don't make your mind a dustbin. Don't make your mind a garbage bin. Buddha said this long time back, 2,500 years back. And true to his message, today when we check an email on the internet, we find so many junk mails. And we don't hesitate to explore all these junk mails or whatever is there, wasting our time. The so-called development. I'll tell you another interesting story about the so-called development. If we are so advanced, so developed, how come that we don't have pure water to drink? As simple as that. We have to drink from bottled water. You asked me to speak on the relevance of Tibetan culture in the 21st century, and I can answer that by saying that at least when I was in Tibet, everything was so pure. Even a small child, I have a very clear, vivid memory of those places where I used to play. Clean, crystal water running all around, surrounded by flowers, green grasses. There is no water which you cannot drink. Water means drinkable. Now today, in the so-called developed country, I had asked these questions many times in America. When I sometimes stay in a 5-star hotel, everything looks so neat, so clean, of course very expensive. But if you ask this pertinent question, can I drink from the tap? They'll say, yeah, you can, but maybe you can, but you can, but. So now we have started drinking from the bottled water, which means we have started buying water. Buying water. The time is not far when we will start buying oxygen. It has happened in America and some other countries for a short time. That time will come. So what I'm trying to say by bringing all these examples, all I'm trying to say is unless you make that real internal development, unless you have that genuine human culture. Culture is not so much about the external expressions, how you dress up, how many layers of clothes you put on, not so much with that. Culture of the mind, civilization of the mind. A process of cultivating a mental outlook where you go deep down within and find your true value. Recognize your whole being. That is called culture, that is called spirituality. I meet many people in today's world where they have almost everything. Nice house, nice cars, all the modern signs of a good rich family. Having obtained all this, you will find people saying, Geshe, I have almost everything, but still I feel something missing. What is it? Can you point out? They ask me, can you point out? They ask His Holiness, can you point out? I have everything, but something is missing. Of course, not something missing. Big thing is missing because you never looked inside. You're only chasing the object to get peace and happiness. And in the Buddhist text, there's a clear mention of those things that is likely to happen because of negative human emotion. And I remember one quotation which says, Tuna Dembar Sungwe Atang Che. which means by perceiving what is a mistake, what is an illusion, as true, and by running after it, it will lead you to only exhaustion. That's why today, many people, despite the nice looking building and so forth, everybody has wrinkles on their forehead and look tired. And that is why the so-called meditation is becoming such a success today. Of course, again there we don't do the meditation properly. You work the whole day, and in the evening after your work, you go to a Dharma center and sit there because you have been working the whole day, you are damn tired, and then you sit down there and you doze off, and then after that you wake up and say, wow, the meditation was so powerful. You are not doing meditation there. You're tired and you are sleeping there, it's relaxing, but that's not meditation. So according to Tibetan Buddhist culture or Tibetan Buddhist tradition, meditation means to think seriously what is happening. Where are we going? In which direction are we traveling? How about my greed? You need to constantly check yourself. One of the great Tibetan teachers, he says, he gives a long discourse in teaching, then after that he says, in short, wherever you are, whatever you do, always check what I am saying, what I am thinking, what I am doing. So there's this whole process of personal refinement. There's this whole process of knowing how to live in harmony with the nature, harmony with other people, you see. That's the culture the Tibetan Buddhist tradition talks about. Look at the Tibetans, we have a land whose geographical size is bigger than the whole Western Europe, with a small population of around 6 million. And people are spread all over the land. And they know how to live with the nature, how to be in harmony with the nature. People understand each and everything. What is this tree? What is this river? What is this animal? They know everything. In those days, we don't have this shiny gadgets, so people did not record all those things. But this is something that is regular, usually in their life. Now today, look at our situation. We only live in high-rise buildings, and the more and more we are cutting ourselves from the actual nature. People even don't want to talk about death, which is part of our life, which is part of our nature. The more you try to run away from these realities, the more you will suffer. I don't think I need to elaborate on this. So therefore, as you mentioned right in the beginning, Tibetan culture is a culture of combining the head and the heart. To use a simple language, a culture of combining the head and the heart. That means you should have heart, which means you should have enough knowledge and awareness of the reality, the way things are. Then you live your life in accordance with the way things are. You cannot challenge nature. You cannot go against the nature. That's why in Buddhism we talk so much about impermanence. We talk so much about death. This is not to frighten people or make people unhappy, but this is the reality you need to face. So therefore, what I'm really trying to say is that, in fact, this is what I ask on every occasion. I ask people, do you want happiness? Everybody says, yes, we all want happiness. Everywhere. I have asked this question in Russia, in Singapore, in America. Everywhere. Do you all want happiness? Everybody says, yes, sir, we want happiness. Then I tease them and provoke them by saying, for how many days? They all burst out laughing. Because we all think that it's not a matter of few days as far as experiencing happiness is concerned. As far as experiencing peace is concerned, we need peace and happiness as long as possible. And Buddhism talks about gaining that long-lasting peace and happiness. We may use a technical word like Buddha or Nirvana and enlightenment. We are talking about ultimate happiness. And nobody can deny that fact. And as far as experiencing suffering is concerned, we don't want even a tiny bit. Even the bite of a mosquito, even the frowning of a person, we don't want anything frustrating or disturbing. And this wish to have happiness and the wish to shun suffering was there with us as an inborn quality. This is something that you have not learned from Buddhism. And I jokingly tell people, and not jokingly, but it's the truth, that after the birth of the child, the first thing that the child does is, interesting to observe, the first thing that the child does is not laughing, but crying. This is how we came into this world. So by crying, the child is asking for, I'm 100% sure the child is not asking for a lengthy discourse on Buddhism. I'm 100% sure. Or any other religion for that matter. Child is asking for somebody's genuine love. Mark this word, genuine love, unconditional love. This is the culture that we are talking about in Tibetan Buddhism. This is how we are born in this world. This is the most important thing that we need. And His Holiness, constantly when he travels around the world, his first message is to help people develop the fundamental good human values, the basic spirituality, which is necessary for all of us, Tibetan, Chinese, American, whoever you are, even the insects, all sentient beings. Fundamental good human values. That means loving kindness, compassion, you see. Now as we grow up, unfortunately, we even forget those inborn requirements and qualities. We don't talk about the universal values, or even talk less about the universal values. We talk about the secondary issues. Which religion you belong to, from which country you came from. That's why we hang on to many of these dividing factors. Oh, he's from that country, I'm from this country. He's from their religion, I'm from this. My religion is best, my country is best. If there's slight disagreement, let us fight and kill each other. It is with this kind of mentality we had seen the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and millions of people are killed here and there, everywhere. I don't have to try to tell the stories. With that kind of ignorance, short-sightedness, division, hatred, anger, jealousy. So today is the time to think, if we are genuinely, in the true sense of the term, if we are intelligent human beings, now we need to focus more on what is known as the soft power than the hard power. Look at the unfortunate situation in today's world. The leaders, the so-called intelligent great leaders, they are competing each other in stockpiling the arms, increasing the population of army, threatening its neighbors. Really unfortunate. Even the most ferocious animals like lion and tiger, they kill other animals only when they are hungry. But look at human beings, what a mess we have made on this planet. So if you, as I've shown in that video, you can really see the relevance of the Tibetan culture in the 21st century. Not only in the 21st century, I have full confidence to say that the Tibetan culture, which is primarily based in Buddhism, is relevant for all centuries to come. Just as medicine is relevant so long as you have physical illness, similarly these inner values, are relevant for all centuries to come. Therefore, it is the task of all of us to cultivate this kind of inner qualities like loving kindness, compassion, and so forth, these universal values. If you don't want to accept or follow any religion, that is fine. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama also says, that's fine. But if you forget these basic human values, that's not fine. These basic human values are not a luxury, they are necessity without which you will die, without which the world cannot exist, without which there will be no harmony in the family, in the society. So that's why in the Buddhist teaching we talk about each of these negative emotions and ask and challenge people, it's not just Buddha's teaching, you should yourself experiment and see how good anger is, for example. How good anger is, you should yourself experiment and see. In Buddhism we say the three poisons. Anger and hatred is one poison, attachment is another poison, ignorance is the worst poison. So in the case of the anger, let us see how good it is. There's nobody who right in the morning makes a motivation saying, today I will get angry. This means we already have some sense that it's not so good, it is destructive. But we don't pay enough attention to reduce it, to weaken it, and to eliminate it. And then after having got angry and having fought with somebody, there's nobody who at the end of the day say, today I was very angry, so I really enjoyed the day. As clear as that. As clear as that. It's negative emotions like anger which is destroying the family, destroying the world. Conflicts, wars, killings are born out of anger, not out of love and compassion. Can't we use this, at least this kind of common sense? How many times we read newspaper and watch television and we hear the same story repeatedly again and again, but we are unmovable until you start suffering. So therefore, this Tibetan culture is a culture which has thousands of years of story. It is a culture where Tibetans learned to live in harmony with the nature, not destroying the nature, but living in harmony with the nature. When the Chinese communists invaded Tibet, everything was intact. Pure, as I said, pure crystal water running around. More than 100, I think 70 something precious minerals were discovered in Tibet, including gold and uranium. It is not that Tibetans in the past generation cannot excavate and use those things. And my father used to tell me that at such and such place there's a lot of gold. And in fact, sometimes he used to tell me there is a gold which looks like a horse, but they will not touch it. With the understanding that this earth belongs not only to the human beings. There are many other forces and spirits who share what we have on this planet. So don't disturb them. It is not only the visible force, there are many invisible forces inhabiting in the plant, in the water, in the rock, in the land. If you disturb them, you may not know the consequences of it, but consequences will be there in the form of many, many horrible diseases. It's written in Buddhism, it is written in Tibetan medical text. And now today, in terms of the diseases, how many strange, ferocious, life-threatening diseases we are experiencing in today's world. Like loneliness. A person living in a population of 10 million or 20 million in big cities, somebody living among a population of 20 millions suffering from loneliness. Can you imagine? Sometimes people ask me and also through me, they ask, Some of the Tibetan meditators who stay high in the mountain, don't they feel loneliness? They ask me the question, Geshe La, you live alone, don't you feel loneliness? And I challenge them by saying, I have no time to feel lonely. I have no time to feel lonely. There are so many good things to do, so many good activities to do. That your whole inner being is, if you try to fill with these inner resources and in touch with yourself, before you keep in touch with others, you need to keep in touch with yourself. But in terms of all the modern development equipments, they are all for keeping in touch with others. Your iPad, your mobile phone, your internet, they are all for keeping in touch with others. Not yourself. You will not call yourself. You will not write an email to yourself. So how would you keep in touch with yourself? If you simply focus on the modern gadgets, how would you keep in touch with yourself? The only way you can keep in touch with yourself is contemplation, meditation, reflection. What is the meaning of human life? How long I am going to live here on this planet? And I tease people by saying that, for example, in this particular of attendance here, it is 100% sure for all of us that after 60 years, even after giving some discount, after 60 years, believe me, we are all gone. So what are we going to do during this 60 or so years of life on this planet? Create more misery upon others? More suffering upon others? When they are already suffering? When they are already in a miserable situation? The Buddhist teacher said, no, you don't have to kill people, they will die. Buddhist teachers have that wisdom. They say, don't kill people, they die. Buddhist teachers say, all are your sentient beings. All sentient beings are your mother, your relatives. That is not only said in the text, but we are trying to practice. Of course, we are also ordinary people. We have our also, problems, but we try to practice it. Look at the Tibetan situation. It is now more than, 50 years, 60 years since we lost our country. Still, under the great leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we try to solve the problem with the Chinese government through negotiation, through dialogue. His Holiness always encourages, tells Tibetans, Chinese people also need happiness. Other people also need happiness. Don't use violence. Because of this, it's not 1 year or 2 months or 3 days, you see, more than 60 years. Can you imagine a leader and his people following so faithfully the practice of compassion and non-violence? And still, the leaders of the world don't pay attention because they have to do business with somebody. Their concern is money. If the money is coming in, let their culture go to hell. And in the long run, let the peace of their own people go to hell. Because all they want is few years of prosperity and pomp and show and sitting on the chair. Very, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Today in Tibet, in the recent account, in the case of the self-immolation of the Tibetans, more than 130 people self-immolated themselves in the last few years. More than 130 people self-immolated themselves. When you have that courage to kill yourself, you can definitely do a lot of destructions to other people, whoever is doing the wrong thing. But listening to His Holiness's teaching, listening to the Buddhist teaching, they hoped that the world will show some sympathy, they will show some sensibility. They expect that people of the world are not dumb and not deaf. They wanted the rest of the world to give an example. Look, the solution of the problem is a negotiation, dialogue. And if this is not happening, if there is bully, there is oppression, we will act against it even by sacrificing our life. More than 130 people kill themselves. Unfortunately, in today's world, who cares? Maybe few ordinary people cares who don't have much power. In the place where these things is happening, as His Holiness Dalai Lama says, the problem with the Chinese leaders today is that they have mouth, no ear. They can lecture on the Tibetans, do this, do that. They will not listen to the Tibetans. They will not listen to the grievances of their own people. That's the problem. That's the problem. So I sometimes, on such occasions, I tell people, okay, if you just remain a spectator and let Tibetans die, which is the Chinese government is doing and thinking that if the Dalai Lama is gone, everything will be gone, Tibet issue will be gone. On the one hand, they are saying Tibet is a part of China. If Tibet is a part of China, how are they treating the Tibetans? They should treat the Tibetans to clearly show that they are exactly like the rest of the Chinese people. Such discrimination. Still saying Tibet is part of China. So what I'm really trying to say is, there is a reason for all of us to show our sympathy and support, strong support, not just saying, oh, but doing something to preserve this precious cultural heritage in Tibet or anywhere else. If humanity is to thrive, if humanity is to live in peace and harmony, if you really show concern about your children, the future generations, that much we should all be thinking that at least you care your children. What kind of world you are going to live? So therefore, I don't have to elaborate the Tibetan culture, as you have seen, those of you who have studied Tibetan Buddhism, those of you who have heard the Dalai Lama, you have seen that in today's world we need to have this very strong cultural and spiritual awakening and do a kind of revolution against any government who is constructing destructive weapons, who is stockpiling arms. These are all outdated. The Tibetan Buddhist culture and His Holiness the Dalai Lama's main message is that when human beings live together, there will be problems, there will be difficulties. But the solution for these problems and difficulties is mutual understanding, negotiation, discussion, dialogue, not showing the force. So I don't need to elaborate more. All I would say is to say that the essence of Tibetan culture is use your common sense. Understand the reality, how closely we are interconnected in each and every sphere. And then develop that positive emotion called loving kindness and compassion. That will be the source of long-term peace and happiness if we are genuinely looking for such a long-lasting peace and happiness. And if you forget these inner values, like the first thing that I did in Sydney was visiting the homeless. And immediately I asked several questions directly to Kerry. Kerry, can you figure out, why so many people here homeless, drug addict, suffering, and sick? How come this is not like Tibetans who lost their country? This is a free country, supposed to be well developed. But how? This is just a small thing that I've seen. How many will be there all around? Suffering from homelessness, drug addiction, and what not? Is this because of material poverty? It's clear that it's not because of material poverty. It is because of poverty of inner good qualities. The government doesn't try to solve these problems by cultivating loving kindness, compassion. It all can be done. They would simply pay some money. Okay. You are sick, okay, come here, I give you some money. And I'll feed you for the rest of life. And you remain like a zombie. That's the problem. So that's why His Holiness's message around the globe is so important. Likewise, I'm sure there are many great teachers today who are waking up and who are giving good messages. So it is the responsibility and duty of the rest of us, through not just trusting somebody, but through using our common sense and thinking, that at least, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, if you are able to help others, please help others as much as you can. And if you cannot help, at least do not harm. That's Tibetan culture. And that is something that we can all do and we should be doing. Does it make sense? Is it relevant to the 21st century? Thank you very much. I'm quite optimistic and expect that things will change and there will be dialogue, negotiation, solution. That is the human way. There is no other possibility in the long run. However, they try to remain arrogant and unchanging, but it's law of nature that everything changes. And I don't think Chinese people want to continue with this kind of arrogance and stupidity. So they are now more and more Chinese, students are going to different countries and seeing different things, the truth, the freedom, the democracy, the reality. They are seeing it, they are experiencing it. So the Chinese people will not choose such one-sided dogmatic policy of control, of censorship, of oppression, of bully, you see. So I'm quite optimistic that things will change. Thank you for asking this very practical question and your wish to do something for the dying Tibetan culture, to save the dying Tibetan culture. I think, as I said already, you need to see from a larger perspective. Because His Holiness Dalai Lama has very clearly said that those people who support, the Tibetans are not necessarily pro-Tibetan and anti-Chinese. And Chinese people, Tibetan people, we all need happiness. There's no question about that. But wherever injustice is happening, it is our responsibility to voice against that injustice, that wrongdoing. Wherever there is unnecessarily destruction of culture and values, we need to voice against it. So in this case, because you already have experience of going to Tibet and so forth, I'm sure that you already know so many things to do, but still the difficulty and oppression is still continuing in Tibet, and so therefore I think it's very important to educate people. Talk to your friends. This is what is happening in Tibet and what is being destroyed. A culture which is valuable to so many people, for peace, for happiness, for harmony. This is important. Just like gold. Gold, if it is a gold, whether it's an Australian gold or American gold or Chinese gold, it's precious. So similarly, this basic human values like loving kindness, compassion, whether this is taught by the Tibetans, whoever is teaching it, whoever is trying to destroy it, we need to act against it and preserve it. Thank you. This will definitely make a difference, but we will not use Tibetan Buddhism to do politics, you see. And the Chinese people, now they say more than 300 million, yeah? They say more than 300 million Chinese are Buddhist. And interestingly, in today's world, the Tibetan Buddhism is the most comprehensive, elaborate, rich, living tradition. And you can find that out, because I'm saying it, you might think he's exaggerating it, he's a Tibetan, but you should find this out, So most complete living tradition. So therefore, our Chinese brothers and sisters, of course, there's so many Buddhists are there, They can, of course, they are already learning from Tibetan masters in Tibet. And many Chinese also, Chinese overseas come to His Holiness teachings, talks of other lamas. That's important. This is not for Tibetan. This is for everybody, for peace, for happiness, you see. So, and then once they realize the way the Tibetans are living based on Tibetan Buddhism and culture, they will realize, oh, this is important. And what our government is destroying is wrong. Because Chinese people are also intelligent people. So they will understand it. Yeah. This is a very good question. And he, in fact, I heard him saying that that small area was the only, pristine kind of untouched land. If you look over the whole Tibet, perhaps that small patch of land was the only land that is left in Tibet that is not touched through the so-called modernization. So this is a problem not only with the Chinese people, it's a problem that we are facing in the whole world. That's what I'm saying. When you don't have this concern for others, when you don't have this sense of responsibility, I mean, you throw your garbage everywhere, you pollute everything. And especially in today's consumeristic society, people just think, okay, buy, and throw all the garbage. And all the wrappings, everything is plastic, and so many hundreds, thousands of tons of garbage that will be produced. Recently, when there was this tradition of the Malaysian airline, and in order to look for that aeroplane, the people were surprised to see the amount of ocean garbage. And we think, okay, just throw it, So long as it's not floating in front of your eye, you think it's okay, throw it, okay. So long nobody sees it, okay, throw it, There's the problem. So therefore, we need to really give a detailed education through scientific findings. Where are we today? How fragile is our environment? Through scientific data and findings. And in my library itself, we are now very soon preparing an exhibition on climate change from Buddhist viewpoint and modern scientific findings to educate people. And last year, when I was teaching for 1 month, 30 university-going students from all over India, I was teaching them some of these basic human values that is taught in Buddhism, the Buddhist culture, and things like that. Then one day, out of the blue, I provoked them by saying, do you think India is a garbage bin, dustbin? The students were, thank God, I know them, I've been talking to them for many days. Otherwise, they might immediately attack me, you see. But when they looked at me with great surprise, They said, why are you, Geshe Lakdhor, why are you asking this question? Then I asked them, what is your answer? They said, of course, India is not a garbage bin. And of course, when you reach the Indian airport, they say, incredible India. Likewise, all the countries, they talk highly about their own country. But the garbage, the pollutions, the contamination, they do their own country. You see? It's unthinkable. So if you really show concern to your, as I said, to your children, to your future generation, not only future generation, to the people living in, say, for example, Sydney or whatever, every single individual has a responsibility to make this place beautiful and livable. So it's totally wrong to think that somebody will, you just do the, throw the dirt around and somebody will clean it up. Huh? What a luxurious way of thinking. So we need lots of education, concern for others.